Thank you all for coming. I think that rather than make a little speech and then show photos, we thought it would be nice to kind of put it all together and tell some stories along with the photos. So our story opens about 100 years ago in Far Rockaway, New York. And my father always enjoyed recounting the poem that he wrote as a kid about Far Rockaway as a place where the matzah trees swayed gently in the breeze. And here you can see my father with his sister Irene, Sharon's mother. Okay, this was the beach in Far Rockaway with my father's mother, his sister Irene, and here's my dad right here. And here he is jumping in.
Oh my God, a great picture.
The good old days. And I think he was a pretty good looking guy. He went off to City College where he studied really hard. He played the violin in the City College Orchestra. And he managed the basketball team in the days of the great Matt Holman, the coach. And then after that, he went off to dental school at the University of Pennsylvania. This was the clinic where he learned how to fix teeth. And years later, he opened his own practice on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And that was his office, as I think some of you probably remember. But first, before that, it was the Army. Yeah. Okay. Actually, that's amazing. That's the sailor suit that his mother made for him.
Jay, it sounds like you've got two things on. Somehow there's tons of echo.
Okay.
Everybody has to mute is what has to happen.
That's not the problem. The problem is Svetlana probably also has a computer on at the same time. That's the problem.
Okay, maybe Svetlana's going downstairs.
Or a phone.
We'll see if
Or
that
if the
one.
phone is on also, it can do it.
What phone? My.
If somebody has a phone on in the same room as your computer, Jay.
Okay, thank you. I just turned
And everyone should probably mute as well.
I just turned off the phone. See if that helps. Still any better?
I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
I still hear feedback. Does anybody else? Okay.
Everyone really does need to mute, Jay, for you'll have less feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need me to mute people or everyone can mute themselves?
If you can, it's probably a good idea.
Let me see if I can. I wanted to let people chat, but
You can unmute after you speak.
I'm looking to some. Sorry, guys. I'm just not. I'm looking to. Okay, can you hear me? Okay, all right. Hopefully that's better. So after this, my father went to the real army, and here it is. For those who were at the funeral, and especially for those who were not, I'd just like to tell you how moving it was. There was a small military honor guard that played taps and then folded the flag and presented it to me, thanking my father for his service to the country. And it was really beautiful. My father, he was very proud to be an observant Jew in the United States Army. He was a captain, he was a dentist at the Army base on the island of Antigua during World War II. Somehow in the middle of the war, he managed to arrange for the Jewish troops to have a Seder. He requisitioned matzah, wine, haggadahs. He even requisitioned the rabbi. And he knew Rabbi Herschel Schachter And he asked him to come, and Rabbi Schachter flew in the supplies, and he led the Seder. My father, at his dental office on the Army base on Antigua, and there was Captain Cohen. As I look back at the photos, I can see that the military maybe is not such a bad thing after all. My father got to enjoy the surf a little bit. He got to ride a donkey. He got to take some flights on some planes. And he got to hang out with some buddies and drink a little beer and enjoy the beach. Then I saw a few more photos, and I found out that my father was a bit of a ladies' man. You can see here was my father right in the middle. And here he was over here. And then we found this picture where he's again right in the middle. So I think he did okay. And after the Army, he came back to New York, and Jacob and Rose, his parents. And I should mention that my father was a terrific tennis player. He won some local tournaments. As a golfer, he had 2 holes in one, the first one coming at age 83. The tennis was particularly important to me because without the tennis, I wouldn't be here. He met my mother on the tennis court at Grossinger's. And there was their wedding, 1957 at the Ambassador Hotel in New York. And then I came along. He spent so much time with me when I was a little kid. It was just fantastic. And then my sister. We spent a lot of Passovers at Grossinger's. And of course, it was as a father that my father really shined. You hear about absent fathers, but my father, he was really very present. Weekends were dedicated to family. His greatest joy was spending time with my sister and I. He would take us to the park. If the weather wasn't so good, we'd play games or invent some. We'd line chairs up in the living room and pretend we were going to our favorite places, like Grossinger's Hotel. We would recreate a horse race, give each horse the name of a favorite food, like tuna casserole or lamb chops, and we would act out the race. My father was just so much fun with creating things. Nearly every Sunday, we went to Manhattan to visit my grandparents, Mama and Papa Cohen, and Aunt Sarah and Uncle Horace. As a father, though, nothing really could compare to what he did for my sister. For those of you who may not know, my sister Judy was born with a heart condition, which made it difficult for her to run and play with the other kids. When the weather got cold and it was too difficult for her to walk from the car to the front entrance of the school, I could see it today as if it just happened. He would tenderly wrap her up in her coat and just gently carry her into the school. She looked like my father, and I think they had a really special bond. And I know what a terrible blow it was to my parents when we lost her. But it was devastating, but he always kept moving forward. My father didn't look back. He always looked to the future and he lived in the present. He had a lot of tragedies in the family, but he was always the optimist, always happy, making other people happy. And he cared for my mother's parents the same way that he cared for his own. He did love the violin, and I think this is him playing with someone named Marnin Feinstein, if I'm not mistaken. He loved the outdoors. He enjoyed spending time outdoors with my mother. They traveled. They did a lot of fun things. He had a great sense of humor, and I think my mother really tied into that. And they were always looking for little ways to have fun. They went to someone's wedding, and my father had a kick out of putting a wedding band on my mother's finger when she was obviously pregnant with me. We went to Israel for my bar mitzvah at the Wall. And my parents were both very involved with the local yeshiva, and they were honored for the work that they did.
I'm going to try, here, sit down. I'm going to try to get my bigger thing. Sit down.
This was Cornell graduation, and the fun thing here was making my father look like the graduate with the mortarboard and holding the dollar bill, because he supported me all the way through, emotionally and certainly financially. It was his graduation too. After my mother passed away, my father met Bunny, and this was their wedding. And she loved Horace right here. And this was the wedding. Again, my father and Bunny. Paula and Jay just sent me this photo. And they had a beautiful life together. And unfortunately, it ended too soon. And my father, he just always perseveres, you know, nothing gets him down. And at the tender age of 90, he met Gilda. And they had 15 wonderful years together. Not something we would have expected, starting at 90. And what was also really nice was my father and Gilda stayed in touch with Bunny's family, here with Paula and Jay. My father was very close with Svetlana as well. And with Sharon and George. My father always enjoyed coming to Boston to visit me for my birthday. Here you can see him with Bunny in my apartment many years ago. And he did this with Gilda as well. Here's my father and Bunny in my office. And he got to know my staff very well. He used to kid around when I first opened the office. He said, Jay, you know what I'll do? I'll just come and I'll sit in the waiting room. And every time a patient walks in, I'll just lean over and I'll say, psst, I hear he's very good. And that was his sense of humor and his way of doing things. And here you can see my father and Gilda coming up to the office and joining the staff for lunch. These are all the wonderful people who've worked with me over the years. When he wasn't right there, they sent happy birthday greetings to him. Again, you guys are all so wonderful. I've just loved working with all of you all these years. Okay, this was my father's 75th reunion for the University of Pennsylvania Dental School. How many people get to go to the 75th dental school reunion? He was only 99. His classmate that also came back was 102. And the head of the organization there asked my father and his classmate if they would like to lead the parade. And they said, would you like us to give you a couple of golf carts so you can be at the front of the parade? And my father's classmate said, I'm walking. And my father said, if he's walking, I'm walking. And so at 99, he walked. There they go. I think he saw me or someone else and just kind of waved. There we go. Yeah, it was such a wonderful, fun weekend. And then, of course, we had the 100th birthday. Let me fix that. Okay. In Linda's backyard, this was such a special day. It was really wonderful. Everybody came together for the 100th birthday. Oh, you missed it. You missed it.
That was so cool.
And there's the cake for the 100th birthday. I have to say that as awful as COVID has been, one thing, instead of, we've always joined Sharon and George and the extended family for the Seders every year. But because of COVID, we couldn't, and it was just the four of us. And so for the first time in many years, my father led his own Seder. And while we missed everyone, it was really beautiful to hear him lead his own Seder. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we were together too. The two of us just davened in the living room together. I'm gonna miss the phone calls every Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Some of you know I can be a little absent-minded, and my father was always reminding me, Jay, you're driving back to Boston. Do you have your wallet? Do you have your glasses? Do you have your keys? Do you have enough gas in the car? And he was doing this, just a couple of months ago. We were watching football games together just a few weeks ago, and he was still analyzing what the Jets and the Giants were doing wrong. And so, yes, we just found this the other day, looking back at one of those fun times with my parents. And it was always about family. My parents, my sister. And I wanted to close with this shot that we just found. It really epitomized just the joy, the spirit that my parents had together, and what they both brought to everyday life. So, thank you.
It was such a beautiful story, that you just wove his whole life together, Jay. I really appreciated hearing it. And
Thank you.
you're a very lucky person. I think you were surrounded by love your whole life and carry it forward. So it's really
Thank
sweet.
you. Svetlana, I think you wanted to go ahead.
Yes, I'm gonna go next. I switched the sharing, so you should be seeing the screenshot from New Jersey, right?
I do. Should I mute myself or turn off my?
Yes, thank you. There is a button on the left. It says mute. Or you can just be very quiet. It's the same. I wrote a little something because something has happened in the last 8 weeks, 8 days when we were together. And I kind of wrote it in as a story because I think it reads nicely as a story. And so here it goes. If Morty's life was a book with a collection of many fascinating chapters in it, and I was to write the last 8 pages, I would title it 8 Days of Miracles. Morty was delighted to get new slippers for the first day of Hanukkah. Somehow his old slippers got misplaced between his transit from New Jersey to Boston when he made the trip about 5 weeks ago. His legs were swollen now, so he was concerned he wouldn't be able to tell us the exact size of the shoes he might need. So we said, no problem, we'll trace your foot on a dinner napkin, on some other paper. This way, we'll know exactly the footprint of a slipper that you need. It turned out he thought it was a pretty clever workaround and was looking forward to what we'll bring in the morning. The next day, when we brought the slippers, he couldn't wait to put them on. Look, they fit perfectly, he declared with such a delight. And there was that Morty smiles and this special sparkle in his eyes. So despite all the difficulties of the last couple of months, and despite all the odds, he perseveres. There were a lot of miracles that last week. Every night we tried to bring some new treats for dinner. After all, Morty was becoming a Bostonian, and we had to introduce him to the local Jewish cuisine. We brought barbecued chicken and chicken soup from the butchery, a kosher store in Brookline, which he really loved. There is nothing more satisfying than a cup of chicken soup, he said. We brought potato latkes and with applesauce and sour cream, to which he said, I had better. We brought a potato leek soup from the Whole Foods because we thought it would remind him of a Passover at Grossinger's. We even put Morty through a taste test of the whitefish salad. For years, Jake has been telling him about the whitefish salad from Barry's Deli in Newton. Well, Morty thought it was so-so. Then I had to give it another try. For sure, he would like my favorite Koopel's Bakery in Brookline. It was better, he said, but not so good. Turns out the best whitefish salad Morty ever had was from the deli at Delray Beach in Florida. Well, we weren't really sure if they're gonna deliver. One thing we were happy about was that he found coffee in Boston to be satisfactory. He confessed earlier that he was worried about coming from New Jersey, where apparently they make the best coffee. Who knew? Morty had never lost his sense of humor, even in the last week, and that's a miracle. But the greatest miracle of all was just about to come. Every night, Morty and Jay would say a blessing, and we would light the Hanukkah candles. It was the 4th day of Hanukkah when it happened. Somehow, just before the blessing, Morty started to talk about Passover. How, for one reason or another, all the events in his life, family celebrations, meals, travel, all connects to Passover. And it's precisely at that moment that something unexplainable happened. The solid definition of his face were replaced with billions of sparkles of light, and his face became translucent with shimmering light. Something was definitely happening, and I wasn't really sure what. I looked at Jay, thinking, does he see that? And I was just afraid even to breathe. Morty looked at us, but it seemed like he was talking to the whole world out there. And he said, remember what Moses said to Joshua before entering the land? He took his time saying these words, be courageous. Then he paused, love your people, and be charitable. All along, the light on his face continued to shimmer. It's a kind of light that doesn't hurt your eyes. It's not like you would look at the sun or the light bulb. It was bright and soft and sparkling at the same time. It's like kind of like a dancing, shimmering light. His face became almost two-dimensional. You could see the other sides through the shimmering light. He looked at Jay and he said, 105. It's not bad. I had a full and wonderful life. We enjoyed a lot of good times together. he said, I want you to smile. And then he looked at both of us and said, I want you to enjoy your lives. We should all love each other and be peaceful. I can still see the dancing, shimmering light. I just really can't explain what happened, but it really did. Mori took his last breath 2 days after the 8th night of Hanukkah. I just wanted to end with this video clip that I took on one of the last Hanukkah night that we spent together. I think maybe it's better because it's a video clip if everybody can just turn off their video. I think for the video clip, it would be better. Thank you.
Tikkun Beis V'Shanta Don Izabeach Li'etachin Matbeach Mitzur Hamnabeach Ozegmor B'Shir Mizmor Chanukah HaMizbeach Ozegmor B'Shir Mizmor Chanukah's HaMizbeach.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That was absolutely beautiful. Gilda, I think you wanted to go ahead.
Go ahead.
Can everyone hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
We hear you. Okay. Morty had an insatiable curiosity. I'm just diving right in. Morty had an insatiable curiosity. If I had a plumber or a carpenter or any workman in the house, he was always there looking over the man's shoulder. He would say he had to see how he fixed it or put it together. He could learn something. He read the Times every day and would sometimes find a word that intrigued him. I would Google it for him, and it would spark a discussion. The word, the meaning, the derivation, and what the columnist was trying to say about the subject. He did this up until 2 weeks before he had pneumonia. Mm-hmm. He also had a sense of humor. He was 104 when he discovered he had cancer. After discussing it, we sat quietly reading, he the Times and I with a book. I could feel his eyes on me. I looked up, raised my eyebrows as if to say, what? He looked at me and said, and with that straight face that he had when you knew a laugh was coming, said, you know, 103 was better. After he had pneumonia, I realized I had grown old. Perhaps 92 is not 105, but trust me, it's old. I wasn't eating or sleeping and felt I couldn't care for Morty as he deserved. Jay and Svetlana took him back to Massachusetts. On our first FaceTime, he pronounced himself a happy man. He said, I'm with people whom I love and love me. Jay has committed what I think of the greatest mitzvah taking care of a parent. I know something about that. I took care of my mother. I'm very thankful that Morty was a happy man. He was with his beloved Jay, and Jay was with someone Morty liked and was happy. I am forever grateful to Jay that his father died a happy man. How great is that?
George?
I'm done.
Okay, I think.
That was
George-
beautiful. Jay, you hear me, right? Everybody hears me?
I hear you, yes.
Okay. It's difficult to follow so many poignant words. And before I really begin, I want to thank Svetlana and Jay for contacting us actually early in Hanukkah and letting us know that Uncle Morty would appreciate a call. And then we said, wow, we'd love to do that. And we did call, and we did see him perfectly recite the brachot on the candles. And it's our last and most recent memory of him, and one of the warmest. And we will be grateful to Jay and Svetlana for a long time for that. Life is full of stories. And a lot of the stories actually we had with Uncle Morty was related. We're connected to Pesach, and Pesach around our table, and Jay and Svetlana would generally be sitting a little bit farther down the table next to Morty and Gilda. And Morty would be sitting next to me. And one of the reasons was his hearing at his later age was not as perfect as it was when he was younger. And one of my kids asked me, I said once, well, what is that in your ear? And he said, it's a hearing aid. I said, well, he said, actually, it's a good thing. And we said, well, his straight face, yeah. Then we said, why? He said, because I only hear what I want to, which we thought was amazing. Jay is also cleared up another Pesach mystery today, which I was not aware of. I always liked to play tennis. And when we were at the Nevele for several years and Uncle Morty was there, we'd play with him, between.
Very interesting photo documentary.
We'd be out there on the tennis courts for hours at a time playing. And it drove me nuts because no matter what I did, I'd hit the ball all over the place. I'm running all over the place. I'm sweating. I'm dying. And he's just standing there calmly, appearing not to move at all. And the balls kept coming back. And I never understood why until today. I realized that I was playing with a tournament champion. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Anytime.
Nobody ever told me that before. Finally, there are a couple things about Uncle Morty and Pesach that I'll miss the most. One is, in recent years, we've come to be writing a tune in honor of his birthdays that passed every year. And we were getting ready, God willing, for 106, and that will not happen. But as to paraphrase Morty, 105 ain't bad. And the way he would sing Chasal Siddur Pesach every year, in the last couple of years, even during COVID, we recorded it when we did a Zoom Seder before the holiday would start. And he'd lead us all. And he had a way of saying one of the last words, Peduyim, which I, after 40 years of this, I have no idea how to do it, but he did. And maybe we'll go back over the film and learn it. But, to conclude, in Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirkei Avos, it says, whoever has a generous eye, a humble mind, and a modest spirit is a disciple of Avram Avinu, of Abraham, our father. Truly, Dr. Cohn was an embodiment of that. And I hope we all find comfort in the future and blessings in the thousands of stories and the thousands of warm memories we have of him. Thanks.
Thanks, George. Paula, I think Bunny's daughter, for those who don't know her.
Hello, I'm Paula Gilbert, Bunny's daughter. I feel very fortunate that Morty and my mother married 30 years ago when he was 75 and she was 70. They dated for 6 years and were married for 14. Morty was a most wonderful, loving husband and friend to my mom, and an unusually kind, warm, talented, interested, and interesting man to all of us. We are so much love and respect for Morty.
Who would like to go next? I think was Shale.
Sure. Yeah, I can. I know the girls want to do something also. The Palladium one from Pesach was on my list, but I figured it was going to get covered before we.
I can't understand you. Can any? Is
Everybody?
anybody else here, Shale?
Oh. Is that better? You know what? I'll go to the. We have a Zoom in the other. So I'll go to that one.
Okay, is that better?
Much better.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was saying I had a feeling that the Palladium from Pesach was going to be covered by somebody else before me. But I was just thinking about kind of what like my earliest memories were with Uncle Morty, and I think the first one was actually when we went to the dental practice, and I remember he had that, I don't even know how to describe it. He had that iron dental chair of yesteryear. And I remember being a little kid thinking, like, this is really strange. And even for the 80s, it seemed like, it was something from kind of way back. But I remember, he let me hop into the seat and kind of gave me a tour of all the equipment. And I always thought that was really cool. And I guess he was the first doctor that I knew of in our family, obviously before you, Jay. And so I remember that being a neat experience. I also remember, to my dad's point, that Uncle Morty and I think all the siblings in the family were just really stellar athletes. And even as a little kid, and probably mostly at the Neville and maybe a little bit at the house in Boston. But I remember playing, basketball with them and tennis. I would just see them leave with their golf clubs. I was probably too young to ever get to the course and watch them play. But I knew, I always knew he was a great athlete. But I think what was really exciting for us in the more recent years was, obviously when Uncle Morty and Aunt Gilda moved to Verona, we're here in West Orange, they were really close by. And so, we had a lot of opportunities to spend time with them in their apartment and, to see them at, I think, both of the houses here, sometimes on Sukkot, sometimes for birthday parties. And Sarah and I were talking about this earlier. One of the things we thought was very nice was, Lucy was named in part for Grandma IB. So, when she was younger and she was an infant and a young child, we always called her Lucy B. And then, I think as time went by and she's obviously older now, she's 8, we just generally referred to her as Lucy, but Uncle Morty always called her Lucy B. And I was obviously very proud of the fact that, of her namesake. And even when I was talking to him just a couple of weeks ago, I was showing him pictures of the kids and he was like, is that Lucy B? She's so big. And, he was always so excited to see them. And Aunt Gilda was also, and, whether it was in person or on FaceTime. And so it was obviously, a real special treat for us to just kind of be, so close by and, be able to spend time with him and see him more often than we did. So obviously we already miss him a lot. And I just echo what everybody else said. I thought the presentation was really beautiful, and I'm sure they'll be, sharing these on like one of your photo websites. But we'll love the picture whenever we get around to it. So thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Of course. To you, Lucy. Oh, Emmy's going first? Yes.
I don't know if anyone can hear me.
Yeah, they can.
But I will say that I am forever grateful to Sham, who was a big help to me over the times that I needed it. And I thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ankita. It's my pleasure, really. Thank you. Okay, what do you want to say? Do you want to read it?
Hi, I'm Emmy. Hi, I'm Emmy. I love Uncle Woody. I love Uncle Woody. And I appreciate him so much. He always got me toys that I like. I like Shabbos on Friday night in memory of Uncle Morty XOXO.
Okay, Lucy.
I love Uncle Morty for a lot of reasons, and he was so great. He always came to our house because he loved us so much. I dove in school in memory of Uncle Morty.
Thank you.
Jay, this is Sandy. Can I say something?
Please, of course.
As the oldest nephew, I have tremendous memories of the father and grandpa and grandma. I'll never forget. First, let me just start off to say, if he wasn't a captain in the Army, because he lived at home with his parents on 96th Street, the Army paid for them to move to 86th Street.
Really?
So they didn't have, yeah, because he was a captain in the Army, they moved for free, they moved them into the apartment in 86th Street. So I didn't have to pay for anything because he was in the Army at the time. Talking about Chasal Seder Pesach, I was maybe 5 years old. Grandpa, JC, and his brothers-in-law rented the ballroom on Broadway in that hotel, Breton Hall. And we had 100 people for a Seder. All the cousins, the props, everybody was there in the Breton Hall for a huge Seder. And they sang Chasal Seder Pesach just like that. And that's how we had it. All goes back generations. Goes back. My father used to sing it at the Seder table also, the same way. Yeah, I remember him because he was my dentist for like 48 years. I'll never forget the sound of that drill. To this day, I have that cord, the old cord noise in my head, sitting in the chair and my mother holding my arm because I was screaming. You know, because at that time they were just getting into Novocaine. So anyway, it was, and I remember him living in Uncle Horace's bedroom, which became Uncle Horace. Uncle Horace lived in the servants' quarters in the back. And he lived in where Horace ended up moving into. And I remember going there because I went to school and I used to spend a lot of weekends, a lot of Shabbos with my grandma and grandpa. And he used to sleep in Aunt Sarah's room and he would be in his room and we used to walk to shul together. It was amazing. We had such great times. Jay, do you remember your bar mitzvah? I had the honor to be at the Kotel at your bar mitzvah. My picture was there.
I
Remember
think
we
you
had
were in
lunch
that.
with,
Yes,
I was. Remember we had lunch with Georgie Jessel?
that's right.
Remember that?
That's
Your
right.
parents and your mother knew him so well from Grossinger's.
That's
And
right.
he made everybody take pictures with us because everybody that came into to the dining room at the King David for lunch, he made us, we were all in their pictures.
Yes. For those who may not know, George Jessel was an old-time comedian, and my cousin Sandy here saw him and just like went right over to him at the bar at the hotel and just started schmoozing the guy. And
but he remembered your mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we have tremendous, amazing memories together. So You
And,
should only have simchas in the Mokim Menachem Eshem and Shravele Etzion Yerushalayim, and only
And-
good things.
and if I could add,
Please.
Your parents were the approvers. Anyone who was dating anybody had to be taken to your parents' house
Yeah.
for approval. So I met Sandy at Grossingers on Shabbos Nachmu, and he told me, Thanksgiving, I'm taking you to my Aunt Eleanor and Uncle Morty. And he took me to your folks' house. And we came to the door, and I had a big box of cookies that I had baked myself, beautiful sugar cookies for your mom. And she took the sugar cookies and she said, don't worry, Barbara, they're all watching football. They will acknowledge you sometime later, but you can come to me with me in the kitchen. And she taught me how to clean mushrooms and how to make a salad, and very, very welcoming. And I remember as well that Sharon brought George to your folks' house as well when they got engaged. And very special time spent in your parents' house. And just one last thing I'd like to say, that your father had such universal appeal. We take out an ad at our grandchildren's yeshiva every year in honor of Uncle Morty's birthday. We've been doing it for as long as the kids are in yeshiva. And the fundraising person who's in charge of this happens to share a birthday with your father. And she adopted Uncle Morty as her uncle. Her father was also a dentist in the war. He was in the Navy. And she just viewed Uncle Morty, and she tells me every year, do I reserve the day for Uncle Morty? Do I reserve the day for Uncle Morty? And I just spoke to her last week. I told her what happened, and she was really beside herself. So he had very universal appeal to people that he like never even met, because he was just so special and so soft and so kind and so giving. I couldn't find it. I had a picture here, and I think Marissa glommed it from me. I had a picture from Marissa's second birthday party of her and your father. And she's all done up. We had a clown. So they painted all the kids, Shale's face, Marissa's face, Jonathan's face. They all painted, and they had, and so she's there like sticking her face through the spokes of a stairway, and he's sitting downstairs and he's looking at her like, who are you? What are you doing? She got along famously with him, and we all loved him very much. And there's a big hole in our hearts. That's all I could say. It's a big, big hole in our hearts. You were very lucky to have him the amount of time you had him. You really are. I mean, no time is enough, but.
Jay, can I?
Yeah.
Well, Jay, let me say one more thing, because it came to me as I'm sitting here. When your father was in dental school in University of Penn, he managed the football team, if I'm not mistaken. And he got tickets for my father and Horace and Irene to come up for the weekend to University of Pennsylvania. At that time, they had a Model A Ford, and the three of them got into the car and they drove to see your father. So I don't know if you knew that.
Thank you.
It was a dead of winter, and I have to find the pictures. They're all wearing those raccoon coats.
Wow.
So,
Thank you.
Jay,
All right.
can I add?
Please, Linda.
So I don't have stories from way back like your family, but I appreciate them so, because for the last 15 years, that's the Morty we know. He really had, his spirit has always been the same. You know, he was never a guy to tell the same stories. You know, some people, as they age, they tell the same stories over and over. He never told the same stories twice. I mean, unless you were pulling stories out of him, but he was so relevant to the end. I mean, he was, you know, he would ask you about he was interested in you. He was kind, he was gracious, he was grateful, and he added a dimension to our family. As for the past 15 years, my children and my grandson accepted him and loved him and cared about him. I get people all the time, everyone, all of my friends, all the people I work with, my entire board knows Morty. And they ask me about him regularly and have sent their condolences and were so sad to hear, but they still talk about how he danced at my son's wedding and how vibrant he was and how remarkable it was to see him, the energy and the love and the such a genuine, caring and appreciative guy. And I love hearing the stories that Jay, your family and his family tell, because Morty was Morty. I mean, I can envision him as they tell these stories. So we're grateful to have had him as part of our lives these past 15 years, and your family, because it was wonderful to be able to host your family and his friends in my home for parties and to get to know all of you. So we are grateful.
Yeah, I've got something quick to add.
Please, please.
Hi, my name is Adam. For those who don't know me, I'm a cousin of Jay and Morty's. And I love the stories and going through my memories. And my memories of Morty's aren't from Passovers. They're not from Shabboses. They're not from Hanukkahs. They're not religious based. They're all from Jay's academic graduations. Those were always the big family get-togethers when I was in elementary school. And every time there was a new degree. When I was in early elementary school, he was a lawyer. And then a couple of years later, he was a doctor. And as an elementary school, it was just so hard to get my mind around it. But those academic graduations just became a wonderful opportunity for the family get together and celebrate the family.
Thanks, Adam. I have those pictures of you and your brothers at some of those graduation parties.
Do I still have that regrettable haircut from back then? If so, keep them to yourself.
Oh, it is so cute. So cute. Who else would like to say something?
Hi, Jay. Maddie would like to say something about Uncle Morty, if that's okay.
Of course.
Maddie?
I really missed him, and I wish he didn't die, and I want him to be alive.
Thanks.
Thank you, sweetie.
Thanks, Maddie. That was very sweet of you to share. I'll just share one really quick anecdote.
This is cousin Jonathan, for those who may not know.
Hi, everyone. Shale talked about how athletic, and my dad actually also did. It's funny that we all have similar memories about the athleticism of the Cohen family. One thing I'll share is that I recall very vividly when Uncle Morty came to visit us when we were living in Rockland County. I was outside playing basketball, where I spent a lot of my time when I was in the mid-90s. And he saw me playing and he said something like, well, pass me the ball, I'll take a shot. And as a little kid, I was looking at Uncle Morty, I said, oh, really? And he said, what, you don't think I can do it? And I passed him the ball and he proceeded to hit his very first shot, of course. And he just flashed me that typical Uncle Morty smile. And then lo and behold, just a few years later, when we had moved to Boston, he came up to visit with Bunny and he saw me playing basketball in the driveway, and the same exact scene unfolded. I can't, of course, remember if he hit the first shot or the second one, but I'm certain that he hit it. And he was always ready to have fun and always ready to play. And that just leads to one other thought that I had. It's incredible how so many different people, so many different generations have spoken so far, and the consistent theme. And we were just hearing about it, how all these different people tangential to our lives, even very close within our lives know of Uncle Morty. When I shared with some of my coworkers that he had passed, they said, "Oh, that must be your Uncle Morty that you're referring to. You've talked about him before." And I've been asking myself, what makes that happen? What allows somebody to sort of transcend, the typical in that way, where maybe you'd remember a story about somebody, maybe you wouldn't. What allows for that? And I think for Uncle Morty, it's that W word. It's his warmth. It was his warmth. It was his smile. He was just such a pleasure to be around. Always, he was just always such a pleasure to be around. And I just think that it's a wonderful lesson for me and for my kids, and hopefully for all of us, that when you just have that way about you, it draws people to you, and it certainly drew us to Uncle Morty. And it's something about him that I'll absolutely never forget. And it's a lesson for me and for you girls that you should always cherish. So that's, Annabelle, would you like to say something, sweetheart? Okay.
I remember this one time I was crawling under the table and trying to pull off his socks, and he just let me keep doing it. It was really funny. I really missed him. I really love him, and he was a really great person.
Thank you, Annabelle.
I want to say another thing.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I remember when it was his 104th, 103rd, and 102nd birthday.
Thank you so much, Jane, Svetlana, for this opportunity.
Thank you for the Zoom meeting. Thank you.
Of course, of course. Would someone else like to, I see Sandy, are you raising your hand there? You have to, are you muted?
It was me. I had to plug in the iPad. We were losing power.
Okay. Okay, Jay?
Yes, please.
Hi, okay. I just want to first of all say how very sorry I am that although Uncle Morty was not my uncle, I felt like he was kind of my uncle, because I used to always think about him, especially when I would see you and ask how he is and how Gilda was. And I felt like I was almost part of the family in a distant way, but I really kept him, on my radar. And I remember the first time I ever met your dad was at the airport in Florida. That's right, when we were all arriving. And I guess he did have something very, the appeal was very universal, because usually I don't really feed into my friends' parents, Right. And he was just a nice man, an awfully nice man. And then I met him again at an exhibit of yours, and he was so cordial and just a lovely, lovely man. And I just want to tell you how much Don and I care, and we care for you. And we hope that all the memories that you have of him will always be your treasure, because you deserved it, and he deserved you. And I hope that our children, our grandchildren will love us as much as you have loved your dad. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have anything that they would like to add? Okay. Well, it's just been so wonderful to hear everybody's thoughts, and I appreciate so much everybody joining us today. And I know I'm going to miss him terribly, but clearly he was loved by a lot of people. And again, just thank you all. Svetlana, anything?
No, just thank you all for coming.
It was okay. But Gilda, was that a wave?
She's just
That's a
waving.
Waving, okay.
a little more of a wave.
Okay. Well, thank you all again. Have a wonderful day. And just thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Be well.
Take
Be well.
care.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.